Lungile and the Bewitched Buck. Lungile and the white deer of original innocence. No girl was more beautiful than Lungile, and no girl was more loved by those around her. She was hard-working too, so that her lobola, her bride price, was high, so high in fact that none but the son of the chief could afford the 100 cows that her father demanded. But for some time now there had been great activity and preparation in her father's kraal, for she was to become the chosen first wife of the son of a wealthy neighbouring chief, and her wedding garment was almost ready for her to wear. For weeks her devoted father had been working on the ox hide, from which her wedding dress was being fashioned. First he had pounded it with the utmost care until it was soft and supple. Then had come the rubbing with charcoal and fat to give the desired jet-black colour required for the wedding garment of a Swazi maiden. This, of course, was only the beginning. Now came her mother's turn, and no one in all the land was more cunning in the cutting and shaping of a robe of such importance. To begin with, it had to fit snugly around the waist and hips, after which the real skill had to be shown in the graceful folds in which it hung about the knees. An expert's work indeed, but at last it was completed, and the bridal attendants were waiting only for the word from Lungile before they would creep silently away at dawn on the chosen day. No one must know the day or the hour of their departure, for goodbyes are avoided by a Swazi bride on the day she leaves her home. It was to be a long journey, but Lungile's heart was full of gladness as the party left at cockcrow on a summer morning. Not only was she going to the home of a kind and noble chief, but her groom was good and handsome, and already she loved him dearly. Besides this, she was well aware that she was by far the most beautiful maiden in the land, so she felt sure of a warm welcome to her new home. Did she not grow the finest crops in her father's land, and brew beer that was unequalled for miles around? That she was desirable had been proven beyond doubt by the number of young men who have wanted to marry her. Life was indeed good, and joyful were the marriage songs that the party sang as they journeyed on their way. Yes, it was a long, long way, but eventually they reached the bridegroom's kraal. There they were received with honour and song of welcome, as they were shown into the spacious quarters that had been prepared for them. Lungile's cup of happiness was full, and there was more to come. 2 beautiful jet-black oxen arrived. They were to provide the meat for the marriage feast, the best the old chief had ordered in all my herd. All was bustle and excitement on the following morning, as the men prepared the meat for roasting on the glowing embers that had been smouldering since dawn. And Lungile watched the preparations from her hut with pride. Juicy steaks were handed to the bridegroom's mother, who in no time had them sizzling merrily upon the embers. Pots of the finest beer were arranged in the place set aside for the feast, and all was running smoothly when, to the horror of the chief's wife, the meat began to leap and twist as though objecting to the heat. Never before in her long life had the old chieftainess seen such a dreadful happening, and she ran in haste to call her husband. But when she returned she found that the skins, head, and every morsel of meat had vanished. Not even a spot of fat remained spitting on the embers. "This smells of witchery," exclaimed the chief, looking suspiciously in the direction of Lungile's hut. But, calling to his son, he said, "Send for the perfect white bull that came as your sister's bridal prize 10 moons ago. His purity should dispel all evil on an occasion such as this." And the bridegroom lost no time in carrying out his father's order. After her first gasp of dismay at what had taken place, Lungile calmed herself as she saw the beautiful white bull being driven into the kraal gate. Surely no honour could be greater than this, she thought with relief. And truly it was a noble beast, and she watched delightedly as it tossed its long black horns and picked its way delicately through the stubble, its hooves as shiny black as its horns. It was not long before the lovely beast was killed and cut up, but this time the chief's wife decided not to grill but to boil the meat, and she therefore prepared an enormous pot of steaming water, and into it she plunged the noble beast's head. Again, all seemed to be going well, when out of the pot there suddenly jumped a young man as handsome as a prince. Just as suddenly he turned into a cream-coloured buck, sprung over the fence that enclosed the kraal, and disappeared into the nearby forest. "Send that witch home!" cried the chief in consternation. "She has brought disaster and disgrace upon our people. No son of mine will be married to a sorceress. See, too, that her father sends back the 100 fat cows that I have paid for her labola." But poor Lungile tried to assure the chief and his people that she was innocent of any evil intentions towards either his family or his tribe, nor had she anything to do with these strange happenings. However, all her tears were in vain. With sticks and stones the would-be bride and her attendants were driven from his land. It was a sad party that travelled the long way home, and for many weeks the broken-hearted girl kept to her hut, ashamed and dejected. But the months wore on, and then the years, until eventually her old, light-hearted happiness returned to her, and once more she became the most hard-working maiden in the land. But news of the strange happenings at her wedding feast had spread throughout the country, and now no young man came to seek her hand, for none wished to risk such a happening again. One day, however, while she was hoeing the crops in her father's land, she felt a strange presence near her, and looking up she saw an incredibly beautiful cream-coloured buck watching her intently. "Where," she wondered, "have I seen this animal before?" It came towards her and circled around the land she hoed. At first she took no notice and continued with her work, but after a while she looked up again, and there it was, apparently trying to attract her attention. "Maybe I could catch it," she thought to herself. "It seems to be so tame." She put down her hoe and went towards it. "It must be the lovely creature that ran into the forest at my wedding feast. I will see if I can kill it. That would be a fitting punishment for the mischief it has brought me." And so the chase began. In and out of the criss-cross paths of the forest edge they dodged, with the buck keeping just out of reach all the time. Sometimes it allowed her to touch it, but never was she able to hold it. The lovely creature led her further and further into the forest, and more than once she was about to turn, for the evening was closing in. But each time the buck circled around and tempted her to follow, until at last it allowed her to catch it by the horns. For a delicate and elegant creature, it proved to be stronger than she had thought possible. However, she kept her grip, hoping, as it pulled her along the path, that she would meet a hunter from the kraal who would help her to capture the buck. But no help appeared, and soon she found that they were in a more open country. Huge forest-clad mountains with beautiful valleys between them stretched ahead, and the girl realized that the shadows had lengthened alarmingly, so that if she did not return at once, she would be forced to spend the night in this lonely place. "This chase must stop," said Lungile aloud, and releasing her hold on the buck's horns, fled back along the path towards her home. After she had gone a short distance, she felt compelled to stop and look back. There, following her, was the same lovely buck. It had such a sad, appealing look in its big brown eyes that a feeling of great pity came over her. "Are you in trouble?" she asked. "Can I help you?" It never altered its position, so she walked up to it and again caught it by the horns. "If you are prepared to help me," the buck replied, "you must show no fear in what lies ahead of us, and do all that I ask of you." "Surely this must be a magical buck," thought the girl to herself, "for he speaks as one of us." And aloud she answered, "I will do your bidding, lovely creature, because I can see that you are in trouble." "Then follow me," replied the buck, as turning he picked his way delicately towards the forest-clad mountains. Before long they came to a gurgling boulder-strewn stream, where Lungile started back in horror at the sight of a terrible ogre, who was sitting on one of the boulders. His enormous pointed teeth hung over his bottom lip almost to his chin, and round his brow he wore a band of animal eyes. In one hand he held a rope tied around the neck of a hideous and enormous hyena. "Ah," said the ogre, turning to the hyena, "we don't need to go hunting today. Here is plenty of meat." And he hastened forward to grab the buck. The buck, however, made no attempt to move, and as the ogre's hand touched him, he turned into a handsome young man, who seized the wicked creature by the throat and threw him to the ground. The hyena, seeing his master overpowered, ran with its tail between its legs, screaming into the forest, never to be seen again. The young man, meanwhile, during what seemed to the girl a struggle that lasted forever, finally strangled the dreadful ogre. As the ogre died, the circlet of animal eyes which had fallen from his head turned back into gentle buck. They now came crowding round to nuzzle and caress the young man, their master. "These are my people," said the young man to Lungile, "for I am the son of a chief. Many years ago a wicked king turned me into a white bull to lead his herd of noble cattle, and all my people were turned into buck, to roam the forests of my kingdom until they and I were freed of the curse. You have set me free, and now, sweet one, we must rescue my people." "Tell me what to do," replied Lungile, her eyes shining with the love she already felt for this handsome young man. "You must stay among my people in this wild region, and every day you must go out and gather spinach, and you must call to them with this magic song. Buck, buck, come down from the hills. Your leader is a man once again. He was changed to an animal as you were. Come down and be changed into men." "But how did it happen that you were killed for my marriage feast 3 long years ago?" asked Lungile. "Having changed me into a white bull, the wicked king sent me to lead the herd, which was paid as the bride price for your sisters of the man you were to marry," answered the chief's son. "But grieve no more, my lovely one, that you lost your bridegroom, for if you will marry me, I will give you greater happiness and riches than would have been in his power to offer." There was no need for him to wait for her reply, for her eyes told him all that he wished to know. For many days now Lungile stayed among the buck in the forest, gathering spinach daily while she sang the magic song. While from far and near the buck came in answer to the song, old buck, young buck, and tiny fawns, all gathered around her, waiting expectantly. Then, one morning, as the rising sun sent its first rays of brilliance over the hilltops, they were all changed into men, women, and children, and, as though shrouded in the early morning mist, the chief's son himself came striding through the forest to claim them as his long-lost tribe. It was a happy homecoming for Lungile, and the celebrations that followed were splendid. Never did a bride have a kinder or more loving husband, and never was such a magnificent herd of cows presented to a proud father as her bride price. And, as the years passed, many were the children who played around their happy home.